Education. Most people tend to think that education is only about reading, writing, math, history, science, and things like that. Yes, those things are important, but there's a whole other part that is just as important that's called unwritten curriculum. What is unwritten curriculum, you might ask? It's all the parts of education that are not just focused on learning, that aren't directly associated with learning, but from the social component, the social experience, such as extracurricular activities. The social experiences and interactions with their friends and peers, observing teachers and how other adults communicate, things like that that aren't directly taught. But through observations, we learn, like culture, how people interact with each other, how people get along, things like that. That's unwritten curriculum. Since I've been involved in the deaf world, I've talked to hundreds of different deaf people. Also, during my research, watching vlogs, reading on the internet, I've come to notice something that people talk about when they discuss mainstream schooling. People like to comment about mainstream schooling. One thing that they recognize as part of the mainstream experience, the academic or the social part of it was missing. Even people who agree that mainstreaming was successful for them and they were satisfied with being mainstream were still very, very carefully analyzed how they said that they could see that parts of their education were missing. Still, they talked about the difficulties of learning and receiving education, the struggles to fit in with their peers, and how hard it was for them still. Education experiences should not be about expanding our mental and emotional energy, trying to receive and learn information, and trying to catch up with others, or struggling to fit in with other people who aren't the same as we are. I grew up mainstream with no interpreter. School was fine, and I learned by watching and lip reading teachers. But my social experiences were negative. They were awful. Other students picked on me and looked down on me because I was different. I had a few friends, and most of the time my interactions were one-on-one, maybe two-on-one, but never a group, because I couldn't communicate with a large group. As an adult, I still experienced mainstreaming. When I went to college, I had an interpreter, but still, I wasn't 100% satisfied. It was an unequal experience, lacking in communication. They said I could get at Gallaudet, or a school for the deaf, with an interpreter as a third-party mediator. My interactions with other people weren't natural. I was limited. Now, in Newfoundland, they decided to close the school for the deaf. Their Minister of Education, Darren King, during one radio interview, after a radio host called lots of different PhDs, teachers, administrators, and students who had experienced mainstream life themselves, after they expressed their perspective and their experiences, King totally just pushed them aside and was vague and just didn't answer their questions. He had made a wrong decision. Of that mainstream student, King said, she was an isolated case. But the rest of the students who were mainstream were just fine. Some people might be tempted to just totally push aside the comments as ancient history. Okay, really? I know one mainstream student in my daughter's class. She's in 5th grade, and she has a cochlear implant. She can talk. I asked my wife about her, and she told me the girl's voice sounds smart, but it's a deaf voice. I blogged about this student about a year ago. I'll add the link below. I went on a field trip with my daughter's class a few weeks ago. And the girl went with us. We went to NASA Ames research facility. It was interesting. We got to go see a lot of things. It just happened that the girl was in the group with my daughter doing the tour. I would watch the girl and see how she managed. The girl, well, she spent most of the time just looking around while the guide was talking about certain things. It was obvious that she was bored because she just wasn't understanding what the guide was saying. Also, she spent a lot of time watching me and my wife, who was interpreting for me. She kept looking back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It made me curious. I wanted to know how she received information. Also, during one activity, she had to do some writing. I was curious, so I peeked over her shoulder just to see what her writing looked like. It had really strong deaf writing patterns. She is definitely not fluent writing English. Her teacher knows that she misses a lot during class, and she's falling behind. Really, that girl is falling through the cracks. She's one of thousands of this generation of deaf students, with or without a cochlear implant, who are mainstreamed and who are missing a quality education. I predict that in the future, they will speak out about their experiences being mainstreamed, like we do now. Schools for the deaf are vital for our deaf and hard of hearing children's education, experiences, and development. We cannot afford to have these schools for the deaf shut down.